Крымнаучфilm and Kiev Film Studio Отечество presents the program The Unknown Crimea. Dedicated to memory of those who died for motherland.
Everything on earth passes. Only the stars and heroic songs are eternal. For when heroes die, they leave behind them the desire for success for their descendants. As the Milky Way is sprinkled with stars, so is our history full of military deeds. Having no fear of death, the freedom-loving Russian people battled with evil and violence more than once in the name of truth, the Tsar and the motherland. No conqueror could enslave the Russians, for they were brought up with the deeds of their forefathers, from whom they inherited their heroic spirit.
The Bell of the Crimean War.
The 1st of September, 1854, Sevastopol. The commander-in-chief of the Russian land and naval forces in the Crimea, Prince Menshikov, received information about the approach of English, French and Turkish ships. The admirals Kornilov and Nakhimov were watching the massive enemy build-up on the horizon through spyglasses. The attacking fleet was moving towards Yevpatoria. At that time, the British newspaper The Times wrote, "The political and strategic aims of the planned war cannot be achieved as long as Sevastopol and the Russian fleet exist. As soon as this center of Russian might is destroyed, the whole structure that Russia has been constructing for centuries will collapse. The capture of Sevastopol and the occupation of Crimea will cover all the costs of the war and will provide us with favorable conditions, indeed, for a long time." The 2nd of September, 1854. The main force of the attackers began landing roughly 30 miles to the south of Yevpatoria. In the space of 5 days, more than 62,000 English, French and Turkish troops landed on the shore at Kalamata Bay, with 134 field guns and 1,100 cavalry. They advanced towards Sevastopol. The 8th of September, 1854. The mouth of the river Alma. The first battle of the Crimean War broke out. On the right bank was the attacking army. On the left bank were the Russians. The Russian troops were only half the number and their arms were inferior. The battle on the left bank of the Alma waged furious for several hours. The Russians charged with bayonets, throwing the enemy back to the riverbank, defeating them with gunfire. But every minute, reinforcements arrived for the attacking troops, who advanced forward step by step. Thousands of Russians died. But thousands of attackers did not return to their positions either. At the opening ceremony of the monument to the Russian soldiers in 1902, Harford, the English consul, said, "Englishmen have learnt here to understand and respect the Russian army." The Alma field was won by the attackers, but what a battle. The waters of the Alma ran red with blood. The land was covered with thousands of dead and wounded Russians, Frenchmen, and English. "One more victory like this," the English Duke of Cambridge said, "and England will have no army left." The Russian troops had to retreat, but they did it proudly, and nobody pursued them. The 13th of September, 1854. The head of the Sevastopol garrison, General Moller, declared a state of siege. The city, protected by the sea but open from the land, was preparing for the attack. In London and Paris they had counted on a swift victory. The commanders-in-chief of the armies, General Saint-Arnaud and General Raglan, declared, "The keys to Sevastopol will be ours in 10 days' time." But they didn't know the Russians well enough. 10 days turned into 349 days. The admirals of the Russian fleet, Kornilov and Nakhimov, led the defense of the city. First of all, they scuttled some of their oldest ships at the entry to the Sevastopol harbour. This stopped the attacking ships. To defend further successfully, the Russians had to do everything that had not been achieved for several years within only a few days. The Russians took the cannons off the ships and moved them onto land. The entire population of Sevastopol helped the sailors in building the fortifications. The city was preparing a last-gasp defense. The 14th of September, 1854. The English approached Balaclava. The convenient harbour near Sevastopol was chosen as the base of the fleet in advance. But suddenly cannon shots were heard from the direction of the ancient Genoese fortress. 120 Greeks from Balaclava started an unequal fight, the enemy outnumbering them by 100 times. The Greek battalion ceased fire only when they had run out of ammunition. The 22nd of September, 1854, Yalta. The English and French troops landed. Pillaging, looting, fires on the streets. The 5th of October, 1854, Sevastopol. The besieged city was exposed to the violent cannon fire of the attacking troops. The Russian fortress artillery responded vigorously. The city was set ablaze, but extinguished in time. Buildings collapsed, powder magazines Large numbers of wounded needed help immediately on the battlefield. This is how the field surgery of Nikolai Ivanovich Pirogov began. The first female nurses appeared here, sharing all the hardships of war with the men. At the end of the day, the cannons grew silent. The Russian forces endured the attack, but their joy was overshadowed. The inspirational spirit of the defense, Russian Admiral Vladimir Kornilov was mortally wounded. His last words were, "Defend Sevastopol." The 13th of October 1854, Balaclava Valley. The Englishmen called it the Valley of Death. Russian troops under the command of General Liparandi successfully attacked the enemy positions. Raglan, the English general, decided to attack the elite light cavalry forces. And it was a disaster. The Russians prepared an ambush. Cannons bellowed. Bullets rained down from three sides. More than half the brigade was left lying on the ground. The British troops had never suffered such a catastrophe. The light cavalry charge is a black day in the military history of England. The 24th of October 1854, the Inkerman Battle. The Russian troops retreated, exhausted after the fight. Nevertheless, in a way, this retreat was still a victory. The attackers' morale was undermined. They abandoned the attack planned for the 25th of October and started preparing for winter.
You are seeing the film The Bell of the Crimean War. The program The Unknown Crimea.
Italian troops joined the attackers. The result is remembered by a chapel in the Italian cemetery near Sevastopol. At that time, England recruited mercenaries from different countries to join the Crimean War. The 5th of February 1855, Yevpatoria. The attackers used the city as an army supply base. Turkish troops comprised the majority of the local garrison. The day before reinforcements arrived, 40,000 men. The city was well protected by ditches and artillery from the sea. Despite this, General Korolyov led the attacking Russian force. The attack was not successful. The Turkish garrison put up a firm and skillfully arranged defense. The Russian army lost 168 men within several hours. After the war, the Yevpatoria Karayim community erected a statue. The inscription, in both Russian and Hebrew, says, "To the heroes of the courageous Russian army who gave their lives for truth, the Tsar and the motherland on the 5th of February 1855, finding here eternal peace." At the end of the 19th century, the Sviato-Nikolaevsky Cathedral was built in remembrance of the liberation of Yevpatoria from the invaders. The 7th of March, 1855. The defense of Sevastopol continues. Once again, Russians suffer an irreplaceable loss. Vladimir Ivanovich Istomin, an outstanding Russian admiral who took part in the battle at Sinop, one of the active organizers of the defense of Sevastopol, was killed. The 12th of May, 1855, the Kerch Peninsula. English and French troops landed. Once again there was looting, violence, pillaging. A great number of antique artifacts was removed. The 2nd of June, 1855. Edward Ivanovich Tutleben, in charge of the engineers, was wounded in the heat of the fight. The defenders of the city were grateful for his rapid and skillful installation of fortifications. The 6th of June, 1855. The attackers started a determined attack on Russian positions on Malachov Hill. Admiral Nakhimov leads the defense. French troops were leading the attack. The avalanche of French troops leading the assault increased in spite of significant losses. Malachov Hill stood as if encircled with two ribbons of fire, continuous arms fire from both sides. By the middle of the day, the French wavered and started retreating to their trenches. The force of the Russian resistance was so great that it struck fear even to those soldiers who did not take part in the battle. Among those courageous and strong people who ensured the success of the defense was the first nurse, Dasha Sevastopolskaya, who had already shown her worth during the Alma battle, Seaman Scout Koshka and many others who stayed faithful to their land and their people during Russia's hour of need. Pavel Stepanovich Nakhimov was one of them. On the 28th of June, 1855, he was mortally wounded while observing the battle. The 4th of August, 1855. Several thousand Russian soldiers saw the first rays of the rising sun for the last time. The battle at Chornoy River. Tsar Alexander II made an attack plan, but it turned out to be impossible to accomplish. The Russian army had the initiative at first. They forced the enemy back, holding the Chornoy River crossing, but they could not complete the task. The second attack was carried out over the bodies of killed comrades to the accompaniment of a drumbeat and unfurled banners. The battle at Chornoy River. Second Lieutenant Lev Nikolaevich Tolstoy called this day horrible. He witnessed the death of thousands of his comrades, including the best officers. Generals Wehrmann and Mayevsky were on the death roll for that day. The Russian loss was vast, more than 8,000 killed and wounded. The 27th of August, 1855. The attacking troops stormed decisively Sevastopol's defensive positions. It was the final attack. All the positions withstood except the key one. Malachov Hill, it surrendered. The Russian army headquarters made a decision to abandon the southern part of the city. All the fortifications on the southern side were blown up. The withdrawal was properly organized. The pontoon bridge to the southern side of the city had been prepared in advance. The officers were the last to walk over the bridge. The city did not surrender. The city survived. After the war, the English newspaper, The Times, wrote, "We expected an easy victory, but met resistance never before seen in history. 349 days of the Sevastopol Defence, 349 heroic days. They are immortalized both in statues and the memory of grateful descendants. Time has no mercy and erases much in history, but the Sevastopol epic is beyond its grasp and is eternal. Everything on earth passes. Only the stars and heroic songs are eternal. For when heroes die, they leave behind them the desire for success for their descendants. Sevastopol continues living.
Special thanks to the staff of the Scientific Library Taurika of the Crimean Republican Regional Museum and the Fund Moskva-Krim.